Welcome to Oregon Indie Film, a video podcast that shines the light on Oregon's independent film industry. I'm your host, Dawn Sellers. I interview Oregon's independent filmmakers who offer insights into the creative process, challenges, and triumphs of making movies in Oregon. This episode features writer and director Haven Garber, a Salem filmmaker who just finished principal photography on her first feature film, titled Getting Back. The film is a heartfelt drama that explores themes of grief, fear, hope, family, and love. Actors in the film include Haven's 6-year-old son, River, and their dog, Coda. I enjoyed chatting with Haven about directing her son and dog together, screenwriting, her advice for coming back to narrative filmmaking after a 30-year hiatus, and how she was able to put together an amazing cast and crew with just a few social media posts. I hope you enjoy the episode. All right, well, I'm here today with Haven Garber talking about her feature film, Getting Back. Welcome, Haven. How are you today?
I'm great. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. We'll just start off, I think, by having you tell me who you are and what you do.
Great. Yeah, my name's Haven Garber. This is Getting Back is my first feature and really the only thing I've done in film for a very long time. I stepped away from my dream of making films when I was much younger and took a more practical approach to life. And then I was inspired to write Getting Back, mainly because my son, who's 6, was getting into acting, and I just felt, what if I could tell a story that captured some of the great things about a 6-year-old, what would that story look like? And then added a lot of drama and messiness into it. Yeah. So it made a great conflict, story. Yeah. And so I do this. I wish I could do it full time, but I have a normal job that I go to, and luckily enough to have some flexibility that I was able to take a couple weeks off and do this project, and had a lot of support unexpectedly. I went into this not knowing a lot of people in the community, and I just ended up getting connected with the right people to make it happen.
I love how that happens. I think the Portland film community is like that. Mm-hmm. People are very supportive. So that's always great. Do you want to share what your day job is?
I work for the government, so nothing exciting. No offense to my coworkers who are listening.
And so you wrote Getting Back, and your inspiration was your son, it sounds like. Did you also direct?
I did.
You did?
Yeah.
And had you directed before?
A long time ago, I used to work in video production, and we did educational videos. So I did a little bit of everything back then. But this is basically my first directing debut. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. That's quite a thing to take on, a feature. Yeah.
First directing. Yeah.
You think you take smaller steps, but just go for it.
Just go for it. Yeah. Exactly. And so, other than your son, were there other inspiring things that helped you along the way in writing this? How long did it take you to write it?
The bulk of it was done within probably 4 or 5 days.
Wow. That's quick.
I've always heard writers say that they were just the vessel and they felt like the writing was coming from somewhere else. I had never experienced that. I always kind of shied away from dialogue. I always thought I would write more books than scripts. But it just kind of came out, and it was a quick process. Of course, I was still editing it up until the day we did principal photography. Mm-hmm. The bulk of it was written within just a couple of days.
Wow, that's great. And so you have some specific themes in the story. You talk about themes of grief and fear, hope, family, and love. Can you talk about those a little bit and how those kind of play out without giving anything away, obviously?
Sure. Yeah. So the story is basically a family who's going through grief, and we all process grief as humans differently. Mm-hmm. And we always we might all experience the exact same event, but the way we react to it is very different and personal. And so that's what this story really is about. So you find out pretty quickly in the story that the family had lost their older son, who was 13, to cancer. And that's pretty much the synopsis. And then and the little boy, who's played by my son, River, the little boy Elliot, gets lost in the woods. And so it's about the parents dealing with their own grief and trauma. And, anytime we deal with anything that is traumatic or takes a lot of attention, I feel like we end up digging up a lot of things from our past that maybe was unresolved, right? So it's really easy to go through life without dealing with our past trauma when things are going well, right? But then as soon as things start happening that are more traumatic and bring up those old feelings, then we have to deal with them eventually. And so that's what this is really about. John, the father, had a pretty traumatic childhood and has pretty much ignored it. So when this happens, when they lose their son and now they've lost Elliot in the woods, they really have to deal with this. And the mother, Michelle, in this story is kind of the rock who's trying to hold everything together. John is not handling it in a very productive way. He's turning to alcohol and is really internalizing a lot of anger and confusion and frustration. And Michelle, like a lot of women and families, I feel like, is like the rock and the person who's trying to hold everything together. And yet she's also at her breaking point because here she lost her son and now Elliot's lost in the woods, and she's just very frustrated and she wants to do what's right for Elliot and for continuing on with her family.
And maybe not getting the support that she really needs from her husband.
Oh, yeah, because, he's very absent, at the beginning of the story in the movie. And so it's really about them reconnecting. And it's like taking a very complicated relationship and then within a 2-day span going through all of these emotions and highs and lows, because, at times it's like you feel like they're reconciling and they're coming together, and then something happens, and then there's this anger and frustration that shows up again. And I feel like, we do that all the time in relationships. It might not happen over 2 days, but it happens over a series of time.
Right. Yeah. So you wrote this rather quickly. I mean, it came together quickly, like you said. And then what was the process like once you started sort of filming? And did you make edits during filming or just right up to filming? What was that like?
There was edits up until the filming. We did a lot of read-throughs, and we did a couple in-person read-throughs. So I really tried to tweak the script as we went. As I heard things that didn't ring true in my ears, I was like, okay, let's edit that. But even when we were, in the middle of filming, edits come up. It's just things that don't seem to work right. A lot of it more had to do with the way I pictured it in my head was they were walking, but when I read it over again and we're getting ready to film it, it's like, oh, they really should be sitting like this is. So a lot of those type of changes more than the dialogue. It was just like settings. And then, of course, when you're filming, like 90% of it is outside. So we had little control over the weather, which luckily it worked out fine. But sometimes there was just logistical issues of this is what my preferred thing would be, but this is second best, so let's go for it.
Yeah, sometimes you have to kind of make those concessions when you're in the moment. And you cast this yourself with some local actors, some you knew, your son, obviously. And is it your dog that's in the film?
It is my dog, yeah.
Coda, your dog is in the film. I love that. And so the other actors, how did you find them?
Yeah, so this kid that plays the older brother, Max, is actually my cousin's son, and they came in from Michigan.
Oh, wow.
So when I wrote it originally, Max wasn't 7 years older. He was more like 2 or 3 years older than Elliot. But then when I got feedback on the script, people are like, wow, that still seems like a pretty young age to have that kind of relationship. So I made him a little older. And then it was a no-brainer to have Parker come out to do the part because he does a lot of theater back in Michigan, and he's just a really talented young man. So I was really happy to have him part of the project.
That is nice. Yeah.
And then there's the older couple later in the movie is played by Gretchen and Ken Dickinson, who is out of Corvallis, so more south. And I had met Gretchen when I was in L.A. doing a commercial shoot with my son. And so we just connected because we were both here in Oregon. And so it was like, oh, okay, that's like they're perfect for those roles. And then the roles of Michelle and and John, basically I just did self-tapes and asked for auditions and advertised both in Portland local groups and then in Eugene. So Kate Gerlich is from Eugene, and she was cast as Michelle, and then Logan Cannon, who is quite popular in Portland, was cast as John.
Yeah, Logan's actually the one that introduced us.
Yes.
So, yeah, he's a friend of mine. And so you're in Salem, not in Portland. So did you film this in Salem?
We actually filmed it kind of everywhere. So we had a day here in Portland at the Linfield School of Nursing.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so we did that for a day. We were at the beach, so we were close to Newport. And then we were on a private property in Veneta, Oregon. Yeah, and that was where the majority of the filming took place. We had a day out in Spencer Butte, and so a little bit of everywhere.
Nice. What was it like watching your son in his first feature film? I mean, you've seen him in commercial work, it sounds like. Has he done any other film?
He's done a vertical film. He's done 2 smaller parts in vertical films, which is a completely different experience.
Yeah. But so his first feature film, was that exciting for him?
Yeah, I don't know that he was too excited. Like, I don't know that he really understands the whole process. He's very talented and is very natural in front of the camera. So, yeah, like when I showed him part of the edit that we did, he's like, oh, how did that happen? I'm like, well, that's what filmmaking is. So, yeah, he enjoyed it. And it was really nice because, all of the cast and crew really supported him in it. He is a little hard to get focused sometimes. He's still very young. He's only 6. Yeah. But I felt really supported as his director and his mom. It was difficult. Most of the time my wife was there, which was great. Like, she was there on weekends, so there was a lot of help, and then my cousin was there. So there was someone always looking after him, so it wasn't falling on me. But it was kind of hard to be his director and his parent. Like, as a actor mom, I'm like, okay, like, protect him, do everything. Right. And then wait, who am I protecting him from? Me? Like, right. So, but it was a great experience. Yeah.
Would you do that again? Would you direct him again?
In a couple years. Yeah. I actually asked him, I said, do you want to do this again? And he's like, only if you write it, Mama. I'm like, okay.
Oh, that's sweet.
That is sweet. Yeah. But yeah, I joked with my crew. I was like, the next movie, all adults.
Yeah, that's what, a lot of people say, don't work with children or animals, and you did both.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, but your dog, so that probably made it a little easier, too, your son and your dog. So there was the familiarity with it,
Yeah, and the good thing about Coda is we just got him so worn out after the first 2 days of filming. He was really he would do anything we asked him to. In fact, there was one scene where he had to run up to Logan and be excited because he hadn't seen him in 2 days. And the dog would just walk off the porch, like, okay, whatever, you're here. So we had to, like, get Logan some chicken and, like,
I was going to say, did you have to bribe him with treats
or
something? Chicken, that's great.
Yeah, I told my crew, I said, okay, the next movie is going to have a baby and a cat in it, and they were all like, nope, we're out.
I don't recommend a rooster. I had a rooster in my film, and that was challenging. So, speaking of challenges, what was your biggest challenge, do you think, in this film? Can you think of one thing that was...
Every milestone I felt like was going to be the most difficult. Like, when I wrote it, I was like, great, I wrote it. Now, how do I find a crew? And then I found a crew. And then how am I going to find a cast? I think the biggest challenge comes down to the finances. Yeah. So this was all self-funded, basically. And so that's really hard because I had ran an Indiegogo campaign in hopes to not have such a burden of cost. And it didn't go very well. I might run another one here in the future. So that part's a little stressful, like when you know that eventually you have to pay things back.
Right, yeah. Financing, film funding is always challenging, I think, for sure. So you did an Indiegogo. And how long ago did you do that? Like, how much leeway?
I didn't give it too much leeway. We started it, I think, in March, and it finished up like right before we started filming. And I think, one of the issues is I didn't have people interested in the film before I started the campaign. So I feel like there's more talk about it now, and now that production's done and we have some behind-the-scene photos, I feel like we can kind of drum up a little more interest around it. So I'm hoping to run another campaign hopefully in the next month or so.
Yeah, that's smart. So you didn't have a trailer, teaser, sizzle reel, or anything before?
No, we did.
Oh,
yeah,
you did.
We did.
Okay.
Yeah. It's just really hard to, not having done this for a really long time, and I'm just not a social media person. I think maybe the best thing would have been to actually hire someone who has a little more experience in growing a network. So I had support from family and friends, but that only goes, so far.
Yeah, it is a full-time job.
Yeah.
Getting money to make a film, that's for sure, especially a feature. Did you have any surprises when you were filming? Anything that was a pleasant surprise?
Yeah. So I was actually talking to my wife about this the other day, and what I discovered is my dog and my child have the same acting method, which is just roll and see what happens.
Yeah, I love that.
Are you passionate about supporting independent filmmakers and local storytelling? Become a sponsor of the Oregon Indie Film Podcast, where we shine a spotlight on Oregon's thriving independent film community. Our listeners are filmmakers, film lovers, and creative professionals eager to discover local talent and stories. As a sponsor, your brand will reach an engaged, creative audience that values community and authentic storytelling. Join us in celebrating Oregon's indie film scene. Let's bring your brand into the spotlight. Ready to partner? Let's talk.
Are you an actor or voiceover talent in the Vancouver, Washington area looking for a professional space to record self-tape auditions or voiceover sessions? Welcome to the Soundstage, the Northwest's premier voiceover and self-tape audition studio. Our state-of-the-art Source Connect-enabled studio is perfect for auditions, demos, and client bookings, all at affordable rates. We offer workshops, classes, training, and more to help you elevate your career. Learn more about the Soundstage at thesoundstagenw.com.
Filming, especially with the dog, he had a lot of scenes because we did all these flashbacks first, and we decided we wanted to try to get him to roll over, which the dog has never rolled over in his life. So why we thought we could do it,
yeah.
I don't know. So my assistant director, Malachi, is on the ground going, down, down. It was so funny. And then the dog just rolled over.
Oh my gosh.
Like magic. And so we're like, okay, just film. Let's see what happens. And so we filmed, and the dog would just do what we asked him to do. He's been doing it all of his life. And so that was just really funny when John Meyer, who was my director of photography, and I, we just look at each other like, what just happened?
Where did that come from?
Exactly. And then my son was the same way. We'd try to, roll tape and slate it, and everyone's like, okay, River, get in position. And after a while, I'm like, just roll, clip it off, and I'll call action. And so he'd be picking up bugs and looking at rocks.
As a 6-year-old
As
does.
a 6-year-old, right?
6-year-old boy, yeah.
And so I'm like, just roll. And so we'd clap it off, and then I'd go, okay, River, action. He'd drop everything in his hands, and he'd deliver the line it came out of nowhere. Yeah, and it's just, he knew his lines. It was magical, and we'd just look at each other and go, okay, we got that one.
That's great. And so do you want to, going back to fundraising a bit, do you want to share your budget? You don't have to if you don't want to, but I always like to ask.
Yeah, well, I'm not done figuring it out. For good or bad, I didn't keep track as well as I should have as we were going. I kind of had an idea in mind of $50,000, and it definitely went beyond that. How far it went beyond, I'm still not sure. And I do, it's such a great film that I really want to focus on the marketing after it. So, I'm hoping that we get everything done around $100K by the time everything's done. But that's my hope is, hopefully 100, 120 is probably what I'm hoping to end it with.
Where you'll land with that, yeah. And so you just finished filming at the beginning of this month. Mm-hmm. Do you already have your post-production team in place? Is that what you're working on now?
Yeah, so my director of photography is actually also an editor, so he's doing all the editing.
And that's John Meyer.
Yeah, he's the one that does Portland Stumps every month. Yeah. And my wife is a professional musician, and so we contacted a friend of ours who did all the composing. So we have an original soundtrack for everything. So the music's all done. We were kind of running that simultaneous to principal photography, and I already have a colorist lined up who, John came with a lot of good connections.
Yes.
So that's was really nice. Yeah. So anytime it's like, oh, you need a sound guy, this is the guy, you need this, you need that. And, he was able to come with all of that. And then Malachi Sequoia is out of Eugene, and he was a producer on Vampire, which is a horror flick that will be making its rounds here shortly, hopefully on some festivals. Mm-hmm. So, I feel like we're set with post-production. It'll take a couple months. As you know, the process takes a while. Mm-hmm. And then I'm going to put it out on film festivals. And
is that your plan? That was going to be my next question. Kind of what's your path for the film? Is it film festivals? Do you have an idea of where and kind of what your strategy is for that?
Well, when I put the script out to film festivals, which it's done pretty well, it was just kind of random, like, oh, this looks good, and didn't cost $1 million to join. I'm probably going to be a little more picky on the film festivals, but I really do like going to the, smaller ones, like up and down the coast here, Austin, Texas. I don't know, like that one's a little harder, but, I just look at the ones that kind of have the same messaging that I think this film has and go with those ones. I'm like everyone else, they probably get contacted with a lot of these first or second year run festivals. And to me, those are interesting because I want to see, those festivals succeed too. So I've been joining a few of those to see how it goes. And my hope is to get distribution, but I also am not opposed to doing self-distribution. Right. I saw Anna Campbell when hers premiered here in Portland, and I think that's a really great possible route. So I'm just kind of leaving that open. And I've been really lucky on how this process has kind of, it's like pushing a rock. And, once the rock gets momentum, it just keeps going.
Yes.
And so I just hope that continues. And, whatever's meant to be will be what happens. I would love for it to have a theatrical release. The cinematography and the location was so beautiful that I really think it's best to be seen on a big screen. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah. Are you planning a screening in Oregon then?
I'm going to do a cast and crew screening at least, probably down in Salem. And then depending on, what the distribution is and stuff, then we'll decide if there's a premiere. But I don't want to label anything as a premiere because of the
because
film
of the
festivals.
You have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
Have you been to Austin before, Austin Film Festival?
No, I've never been to any of them.
Austin is really fun. It's one of my favorites. I've been a few times. And I say even if you don't, it's very competitive. But even if you don't get in, it's worth it for the panels that you can go to and seeing the films and just meeting people. It's really a screenwriters festival.
Okay.
So if you're into screenwriting, I highly recommend going to that. I know festivals can be expensive, and my advice would be go to the ones that you want to go to.
Yeah.
Submit to the festivals that you would go to if you were selected.
Yeah.
Because there's some great ones. There's one another one I would recommend is the Valkyrie Film Festival. I just got back from that, and it's for female directors.
Oh, cool.
So, and a lot of really good films, and I think you should submit to that one. Really nice people, too.
Great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah. I'm going to my first one in July at the Imaginarium in Louisville, Kentucky. Yeah. So I'm excited for that.
I've heard that's a big one.
Yeah. It's 3 days. It's day and night panels, and so I'm excited. It'll be my first one. So
that'll be great. And there's quite a few around Oregon too, so that's good. You don't have to go too far from home. And so distribution is tough, isn't it? Because everything is changing so randomly right now. Yeah. Like nobody really knows what's happening. I think I'm very impressed with Anna Campbell. We talked about her, how she has distributed. But her film was a little different because it was more music focused, although it sounds like Veeps might be an option for narrative film in the future. They're just kind of dipping their toes into it, I think. But self-distribution, doing your own screenings, all of that can be, again, a full-time job. Right. I think, there are like distribution consultants too that you can hire. And that's what they do, is they get your film out there, and it's another, I guess, option. So post-production and then film festivals. With this film, are you already thinking about writing another one?
Yes.
I knew it.
I am stopping myself because I want to make sure, getting back has as much of my attention as possible. But as soon as I finished that one, I was like, oh man, I could just write the next one, and completely unrelated to getting back. One's a thriller type, mystery thriller, and then another one that is a narrative, probably drama, and it's about infertility and kind of my experience with that issue. And I have so many house projects to do. I told my wife, I'm like, well, maybe if I do one house project, I'll sit down and do 5 pages.
Treat yourself as a reward. You can sit down and write your stories.
Right.
I like that. And so you talked in the beginning about writing books. Have you written books?
No, I've started a lot, but I haven't really gone that far. I like coming up with the beginnings and the ending, and I have a hard time with the middle parts.
That Act 2 gets us every time.
I know, right?
Yeah, it's the toughest.
So, I do hope to write a book sometime in the future, but it was really fun doing this as a script and being able to see it. There's a lot of scenes where Elliot sees his dead brother, and basically it's all this imagination and play. And so being able to see that, and then in my mind, and then being able to put that down on paper was really interesting. And now to see it come to life, it's just I feel books are obviously wonderful and great. But then I don't get the picture as well. I feel like I get the picture when I think about writing a script in my mind more than when I think about reading a book or writing a book. Yeah,
it is wonderful to see your thoughts come off the page and onto the screen by the actors. It's magical. It really is. So I always like to ask this question, what is your big, beautiful dream for yourself? Filmmaking or otherwise? If there were no limitations, what would that be?
If there were no limitations, it would definitely be directing. When I was younger, I dabbled in acting too, more theater acting than film. But I love being behind the camera and bringing out the best in the actors and having a vision and just bringing that to life, and then seeing how it all ends up tied together in the editing room, and then being able to put your own spin on the story. If I could do something full time, it would definitely be directing and continuing to write my own scripts, because I think what made this easier, I guess, is that I had the script memorized. I wrote it, I knew, I felt it, and I could just. It was easier to bring that out in people when I could tell them, oh, this is the whole history. This is what this guy's been through, for 50 years.
Right.
So bring this out,
the entire backstory.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly. So, I would love to direct film full time.
Nice.
And I would love to see my son, he's at a stage right now where he's not sure he wants to continue because he hasn't really seen things fully develop, I think once he sees himself not just on the teaser or the trailer, but like a full movie and how beautiful it is, I think he'll probably get the bug. So I would love for him to continue because I think he has such a natural talent. Words.
Yeah. Writers, we always have trouble with words.
I know, right? That I would like to see him take it as far as he wants to, and whenever he wants to. You know, if he wants to take a break, I talked to his acting coach, and he wants to take a break. I'm like, that's cool. And then, you know, if he's 10 or 15 and he wants to do it, you know, he has 100% support from us, and just want him to do it, you know, be safe. And there's a lot of things that can happen to young actors, and so how to give him a sense of reality and let him reach for the stars at the same time.
Now, did you or your wife do any acting when you were younger?
I did in high school and college in theater. My wife's been a musician her entire life, so she's done a lot of things that way. And she's a stand-up comedian, so that's its own version of acting. So, yeah, we love the arts and have both dabbled in different things.
Yeah. Does she do any stand-up anywhere?
She used to in Salem at the Infinity Room. She used to perform down there, and then when our son came along, it was less time. Harder, but I'm hoping that she gets back into it soon.
Yeah. And what kind of music does she play?
She's a professional violist, so classical music.
Nice.
She plays with the Oregon Salem.
Like the symphony, Salem Symphony?
Salem Symphony, yeah.
Nice. Wow. Yeah. So a talented family.
Yes.
Yeah. I love that. And so you're probably going to run another crowdfunding campaign. And how people listening, how could they find out about that?
They can follow us on socials. So most things are under Getting Back Film. So we're on Instagram, we're on Facebook, and then we also have a website, riverwildfilms.com. And so plan on keeping that updated with information. And eventually I meant to update it this weekend, but people can go onto the website and then ask for updates. And then we'll be able to do that. So
nice, like a little newsletter
type thing.
Nice. And so River Wild Films is your production company. How did you come up with that? Was that for this film?
It was.
Okay.
Yeah. You know, River's a great name, and, you know, he is a little wild at times. And so it just seemed like a perfect fit. It was a great name.
Yeah.
And surprisingly not taken, but...
Yeah, I know. I'm surprised, because that is a great name.
Right?
Yeah. And so everything is then under the River Wild Films or Getting Back Film. You're not personally on socials where people could follow you and your writing or anything?
No, not right now. My son is under River's Wonder.
Oh, okay.
So he has a YouTube channel and
so we can follow
Instagram.
him on that.
Yeah.
See some of his other acting. Yeah, that's great. And then tell me that again. It's called River's Wonder?
River's Wonder. Rivers_Wonder. Yeah.
Perfect. I'll have to check that out. Yeah. Is there anything else that you want to tell us about the film or the process of filmmaking? Anything you want to share?
I would say, you know, anyone who wants to do this, like, one, don't wait 30 years like I did. Yeah. But even if you do, it's not too late. You know, I feel like as humans, we start feeling like, oh, in another lifetime, I would have done this or that. And, you know, I don't think it's ever too late. And just pick a date and just do it. You know, everyone told me when I started talking to people in January about, I just wrote the script and I had May in mind. Like, I didn't want it to be too hot, too cold. May. I'm shooting in May. And they're like, that's a close deadline.
It is a short timeline.
Yeah. And, you know, I could have spent an entire year. Had I known now what I knew, if I known then what I knew now, like maybe I would have held off for a year. But I think I would have still been the same amount prepared, the same amount nervous, probably even further in debt because I would have spent more money on the way. Right. So you just kind of have to do it. And, you know, when you start letting that rock roll down the hill and build that momentum, you know, just kind of get out of the way and let it happen. And I think that was the best thing I could have done. I would have talked myself out of it had I waited a long time to do it. Like, it's never going to be perfect, right?
Right.
There's never perfect timing, perfect situation. You just sometimes have to just do it.
Just do it. Yeah. We've heard that before on this podcast. Just do it. And it is surprising, like once that rock starts rolling, the support that comes along and helps you push that rock forward. We talked about that, and just how people come together and help. So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the being on Facebook and just posting that, hey, I have this idea for a script, how can I make it happen? And that's how I found John Meyer. He just said, hey, I'm like, okay, this could be really bad. Like, here's this random guy.
Right, I've never met, yeah.
But it was a truly inspiring meeting, and we just had lunch, and I'm like, wow, this could really happen. And then I met Malachi and Eugene, and it's like, wow, this is really going to happen. And just being able to ask for help when you need it, ask for advice, and then just kind of trust your gut. I feel like everyone who was part of this project really fell in love with the project. And that was really important to me.
Yeah.
Sure, everyone wants a paycheck too. We do this because we need to make a living too, right?
Make a living, yeah.
And they all really believed in what we were doing. So that was good for me. That was inspirational for me to see how much everyone fell in love with this project as much as I did. So that was really heartwarming.
Yeah, I love that. And just how everyone wants to see everyone else succeed.
Yeah.
I think that's a unique thing in the film industry that doesn't always happen in other industries. But truly in independent film, I think people really just want to see all of us succeed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, which is the purpose of this podcast, is just to kind of amplify all of the success that's around us. So, yeah, well, thank you so much for being here. And I'll put all of the links in the show notes. So if people want to follow, if they want to contribute to your film, so you can, finish your post-production and kind of get out there to the festivals. And I'll be watching to see how you do.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening. If you'd like to continue the conversation with Haven Garber or support her film Getting Back, reach out on her website, riverwildfilms.com. Or follow Getting Back Film on socials. You'll find all those links in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to leave a 5-star review and share the episode with a friend or two. It really does help us reach more indie film lovers. Want to support the podcast by becoming a guest or a sponsor? Reach out at OregonIndieFilm@gmail.com.